G'day folks, it's Ando from Boss Outdoor, and today I'm going to show you how to attach your leader to your braid. Now there are many knots out there that you can do this with, but I find the most effective is the FG knot, and that's the knot I'll be showing you today. So you'll notice I've got my braid up over my shoulder here. Now ordinarily I would have this running out of my rod tip and tied down to my reel handle, but for the purpose of the exercise today I've just got it tied to the Boss Outdoor roof racks and down to my workbench. So basically it's taut, well, semi-taut. Then I'm going to grab my leader and I'm going to start the plaiting process. So I'll get you to come in tight and we'll have a look at that. Okay, so for the first step, you're going to grab about 3 to 4 inches of leader. You're going to place it along your braid. I'm going to hold the leader tight in my hand back here. Basically going to wrap that leader around behind the braid and back out, and then wrap the leader around the braid again, but over the top of my fingers. And the whole time I do this, you should start to see the braid forming along the leader in a plait. Okay, so that means the knot is starting to work. And what it is, it's basically like a finger trap, where the more you pull on the trap, the tighter it clamps down on your finger, and that's what we're trying to achieve here today. Okay, so now I've twisted that up. I couldn't remember how many times I counted the twists, but you want about 10 to 12, maybe 10 to 15 mil max, so millimeters in length across that braid or that plait. And then once you get to that point, you want to bring everything up tight. Just pinch there. Now, you just grab your trusty snips and you would snip that off from your reel handle that you had tight, looped around. And then to lock all this off, you're just going to do one half hitch. So it's a simple half hitch with that tag end. And I'm just going to bring that down really tight. Now that's locked off the knot. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a handful of leader and a handful of braid, and there are tools you can use, but for light tackle stuff you can just do it with your hands. Put a glove on if you don't want to get a braid cut. And I'm going to stretch that knot, and I'm going to basically put some friction in this section here, which is basically going to warm it up and amalgamate the braid to the leader. So the harder I pull on it, the tighter it will get, like that Chinese finger trap, and it will clamp down on the leader material, and then it won't slip any further. And then I'll finish off the knot. I'm going to show you that right now. Okay, so you'll note that I've got a wrap of braid around my hand and a wrap of leader around my other hand. So the braid's obviously still attached to my rod and my leader to my leader spool. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to stretch that knot and get that knot to tighten down. As I pull, you should see it change colour. It's just changed colour at the back end now. Not sure if you can see that, but that now means that that knot has had enough friction in it that it's actually amalgamated in with the leader, and that will not slip. I can pull down as hard as I can on that and it won't slip. But there's one further step to this just to neaten all that off, and we'll get onto that now. So all I'm going to do to finish off this knot is a series of half hitches. So I'm just going to grab the tag of the braid and go around the tag of the leader and the main line with a half hitch and lock that off like that. Then I'm going to do another half hitch, but I'm going to reverse the half hitch. Slide that down there. So I'm going to do that again, half hitch, and each time I do a half hitch I'm alternating from left to right. A little bit like macrame, for anyone that did macrame at school. That's 4. Now 4 is enough, but I like to do 6. And what that does, it provides me a little insurance. So what I mean by that is, if the knot does slip the tiniest bit, it'll be taken up in those half hitches. So now that I've got all those half hitches done around the leader line and the main line, I'm going to finish off that knot. Now there are different ways you can do it. This works for me. If you have an alternative method, by all means, do whatever works for you. But this works for me. And again, like I say, until it breaks on me, I'm happy with it. If it fails, I'll look at an alternative method. But I'm basically just going to do a half hitch around the main line. So the braid tag around the main line. One and 2. And that is it. And what that basically does, going around the main line, once that comes down all tight, it almost angles the leader slightly. So instead of the leader being dead flat through the knot, it just turns it down. It takes the pressure point from a different angle, and you'll just see the leader just dipping down at the tag end. That will also help the knot strength so that the leader won't have a tendency to slip straight out. It just changes the angle on it a little bit. Now we've got that all sorted. You can cut this down nice and tight. You can leave it long and burn it with a lighter and put a little bulb on the end of the nylon, which will also help, because that bulb on the end of the nylon will not slip through. However, you've got to be careful with that you don't burn the knot itself. Cut the tag end off nice and tight, nice and neat. And there you have, now it's probably not the prettiest of knots. It is actually hard to tie when I'm trying to explain it. However, that's a knot that you should be able to tie, I guess, in around a minute's worth of time. And it's the strongest knot that you'll be able to use. The real good advantage of this is you can wind that onto your spool and still make a cast, and the line will not get caught on that braid to leader knot. A double uni is quite bulky, and if you wind on a double uni knot onto the spool and make a cast, sometimes the braid will catch that knot and ruin your cast. This knot won't do that. This will allow you to run a really long leader. A good example of this is if you're fishing off the beach and you're casting with braided line, you can have a really long leader. So therefore, when you have your finger on the line during a cast, your finger is on the nylon monofilament or fluorocarbon, not the braid. And that helps get a long cast. So if you're fishing for sharks or mulloway or something like that, it's a real good advantage. It's the FG knot, guys. Like I said, it's probably not the prettiest one I've tied. However, it does work. It's nice and slim, and it's very strong. If you need to know any more tips on how to tie this knot, the entire staff here at Boss Outdoor will be more than happy to hook you up.